1, 2, 3. Never right. Welcome to Spartalknewztalk, your plucky working class source for the news you need and the takes you trust, cause if you want to speak to a manager, you're looking at them, go right ahead. This is Spartalk Jacques, casting from the best little Mexican hamlet north of Windsor, Ontario, southwest Detroit, Mexican town. Sitting next to me at the bar is my technical director, my co-producer and co-host, Hakeem Walker. Hakeem, we're sticking with this layout today, and we're doing an interview. So how do you think it's going to go?
It's going to go smashing.
It's going to go smashingly.
Yeah.
People don't say smashingly enough, but I agree.
I do. I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good adjective. I believe that it will streamline things, but we'll see what weirdness we'll run into with it. Hopefully none, knock on wood. We'll see. Because we largely do this for our own edification. I always forget to tell people to like and subscribe, but we do have our Twitter handle, Detroit Spar, in the corner each week. Follow us there, and hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will never find a more accessible, grassroots, working class news source, and just a couple of clicks will help us out a lot. We've been doing just clip shows and cocktail construction videos the last few weeks, so there's a lot to catch up on. Today is Tuesday, May 18th, and today in the news. The Pentagon has admitted that a leaked video of a UFO over the Pacific Ocean near San Diego in 2019 is authentic and taken by Navy personnel. It shows a spherical object floating over the water and zipping back and forth before submerging out of sight. Did you see that video?
I did see that video.
Freaky, right? Yeah. The CDC announced last Thursday that vaccinated individuals can be maskless in most settings, given that in Detroit the vaccination rate is only 30%. About most local businesses that I'm aware of are keeping their previous policy of masks on while standing and indoors. And in my opinion, they all should. But thanks to the CDC, in any case, for making our jobs harder. Hakeem, we're both currently setting up post-apocalyptic bars. So I wanted to get your opinion. What do you think about this?
I know from personal experiences that it's going to be very difficult to tell people that either they can or can't wear a mask. We have people at a bar recently that I'm setting up for be like, you don't have to wear a mask because we made a conscious decision to wear a mask. And it's like, yes, we know that, but and people are already starting to push back on the idea. They want to push back. So they're taking this as a call to force for them.
And I'm sorry, most of the people that are pressing the issues, the issue that like the CDC and using this information, most of those people are not vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it.
But like most of the people that are vaccinated are just like, I'll still wear a mask, anything to get this over with, So
yeah, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like the people, it's giving just a loaded gun to people who want to use it to fuck with your working class, your baristas and your Walmart employees and whoever else. Now it's like, oh yeah, now no matter what the business says, the employees are going to take the brunt of it. They're the frontline people for this.
Yeah, and they kind of like they've done every other time before. They just kind of put the burden to navigate it and regulate it and everything onto us. So here we go again. But anyway, President Biden announced yesterday that 20 million additional vaccines will be going to needy nations abroad, bringing the total to 80 million. The initial 60 were mainly AstraZeneca, while the additional batches will be Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. The House just passed a bill designed to curb hate crimes against Asian Americans. After the Senate voted overwhelmingly in favor of it, it's now heading to President Biden's desk, where he's expected to sign it. And the Supreme Court will soon hear a Mississippi abortion case which could challenge or even overturn Roe v. Wade. This with a more conservative court than we've probably seen since the passing of Roe. I mean, certainly at least till then. We'll be sure to keep a close eye on that story in particular here at Spartalk. Israeli jets are pounding Gaza this week with airstrikes. The Hamas-run Ministry of Health reported 213 dead, including 61 children, with 1,400 injured. More than 2,500 Palestinians are without homes, and 38,000 are internally displaced. This is in response to a week of militant rocket fire into Israel. We were going to have a panel episode on anti-Semitism, which we are still looking to do, but it takes on a very different dimension here, because while anti-Zionism is often conflated with anti-Semitism, and while there are specific instances where I do believe that dynamic exists, Zionism itself is increasingly associated with the defense of racist, discriminatory laws against Palestinians and what is essentially an apartheid state. There are 65 Israeli laws that actively discriminate against Palestinians in Israel and occupied territories. Gaza has been described as an open-air prison, and mass evictions of Palestinian communities on the pretext of archaeological or public value are viewed more and more as a systematic ethnic cleansing of the nation. But we'll talk about that another time, more in depth. The only other thing I have, Keem, is Charles Grodin, a virtuoso of comedic acting and the confrontational late-night interview format, is dead at 86. It's, Beethoven actor. Big loss.
That's what I know him from mostly, to be honest. But
yeah, well, I'm going to show you.
On game on. I know the name. I know some of his other work. But
I'm going to show you some Carson interviews sometime.
Yeah,
that are really
down for that.
And Letterman ones. They're very good. Our guest today was a great panelist for our Season 2 premiere, where we had a Trump voter and a Biden voter, and we wanted a third-party voter to round it out. So we were very happy to have a Libertarian congressional candidate for Michigan's 9th District and Joe Jorgensen voter, our returning champion, Mike Saliba. Mike, how you been?
Okay, doing okay.
Good. This is my co-host and co-producer, Hakeem. Hakeem, Mike Saliba.
Mike, how you doing?
Nice to meet you.
We wanted to have you back for some follow-up takes on the election. We did the same with Andrew, who made it clear that he didn't accept the declared results of the election, and this was somewhat before the events of January 6th. But I wanted to ask you what your assessment was on the fidelity of the election, and to see if you're surprised by Andrew's assertion that it was rigged.
I don't think it was rigged. I don't think it went any differently than any other election. I don't understand why anybody would expect a different result in the first place, considering Trump only won with the skin of his teeth. Incumbents usually lose votes by the second round. Everything pointed to he didn't make good on almost any of his promises. Why would that person get elected? Yes, I do believe a man who was capable of bankrupting a casino and an airline could lose to a guy hid in a basement.
Are you surprised, Andrew? First off, have you met any Trump supporters that, I mean, maybe that's the first question, but that accept the declared results? Because I feel like most of mine are think it was fishy or something was going on, even though there's no evidence.
I'd probably say, I don't know if most fall into the hard line. It was a steal, but I think the majority have suspicions or at least mention it.
Right. So you're not surprised about Andrew?
No, I guess not when you put it like that, no.
I also asked you during the episode if you were worried that there was going to be a coup, and you said you were a little bit, but not a lot. And there kind of wasn't one, but it certainly could have shaked out differently. I mean, there kind of was at the same time. So were you surprised by any of the fallout of the election? If so, what most by?
I guess I was a little bit startled when the images from the Capitol started coming in on January 6th. But at the same time, once, I was like at work, I was in my office, but, once somebody like texted me about it or messaged me about it, once I turned on the TV and once I saw, the speech that he had given, I'm like, well, yeah, 1 + 1 does equal 2. That was how that was going to go down.
Right. So, let's talk a little bit about our ideologies. I'm sure we agree a lot on what's wrong with the Republican Party and conservatism today. And when I talked in the last time about how the Libertarian Party has just nominated like Republicans these days, you seemed sympathetic. And perhaps Judge Jorgensen is the exception. I haven't looked into her too much, but you also said that you thought that the left was done with liberalism or Enlightenment values. So could you go into a little more detail on that?
Yeah, I just remember when my political science professor said, the United States is kind of weird because our two major parties are both liberal parties. And it's never the way we use the term here. We have liberal and conservative. And it's just going back to the classical liberalism of the founding, going back further to England and a little bit of France. The Enlightenment gave birth to liberalism. And depending on what point in time you were, you could, if you take me back to 1776, you call me a liberal. If you take me back to 1913, I'm a conservative, and the thing that I'm trying to conserve is classical liberalism.
Well, the old world uses libertarian differently as well. They're essentially,
yeah, and that's not.
Yeah,
that bums me out too.
Does it really?
Yeah.
You don't find any solidarity with those anarchists?
I call them just European libertarians or left libertarians, or they call themselves libertarian socialists. At some point, they have a caucus in our party that's kind of dwindling, but it's kind of like if Lionel Messi showed up to the NFL offices and told them they were playing football wrong. Like, no, this is just what we call football, not what you call football. It's the same name, but it's a different sport.
See, but I would say that I was like when I in college or whatever maybe identified or with libertarianism, like I would say even then I consider myself left libertarian, that I wasn't like very passionate about economic issues, but I did feel like there among libertarian groups, maybe and socialist groups, honestly, there was more of a moral panic and a more of a immediacy when it came to the drug war, the wars in the Middle East, and I didn't see that as much with regular liberals. And when I talked to you, if I had to guess where you were on the Nolan chart, I would have guessed just left libertarian, but just left of that line. Would I be right?
I'd say pretty well down the middle.
Okay.
But straight up, not quite at the tippy top.
Got it. See, like I said, I never really had much the thing that I can't, like, that I always found agreement with libertarians on economically is the income tax, and I do think that I still and guns. I mean, I'm not particularly I'm not particularly pro gun control, but again, I think looking at it now, it's mainly like, if these cops have these guns, I don't want you taking the guns from us. I want there to be a symmetry there, and I don't know. Like since then, I think, and even income tax, I think I'm mainly. I don't really care about unearned income, for instance. I believe that people that are capitalizing off of their labor are entitled to every cent that that they get out of that, and they shouldn't be taxed that. I think that's dime stores, kind of slavey sort of thing. But like, if you're capitalizing off of land or the means of production in general, and I'm a libertarian socialist is what I would say, but I am today. But like, or Georgist or whatever, I believe that we we're entitled to our natural resources equally. But I don't see where the libertarians factor that in. So like the people that buy this land that we're all deserve some of, they can just run roughshod over their workers, or whatever, So that's how I just wanted to give you an idea of my evolution from libertarianism. I don't know if you have a retort or whatever, a pitch to bring me back to the fold.
I know everything you said, makes sense. Don't think maybe just the notion. I get this from most leftists all the time, that for some reason the person who owns the factory is just this guy on a beach who the money just pours into his pockets and such. I don't know, the division of labor arguments that leftists tends to make seem to be pretty stuck in the industrial age from whence they came, and really doesn't take into account the other factors that go into organizing.
I get that dynamic. It's I work in the restaurant industry. I mean, I work at bars. I know I work closely with the people that own the land that I work on, and work it all the time too. I don't begrudge them that, but I personally think that as a laborer, as the proletariat, I'm entitled to some, as a U.S. citizen, I'm entitled to some of the land, the natural resources, everything that is not evenly distributable. So I think that could easily be paid to me in the form of health care, in the form of housing if I lose my home or whatever, and I don't think that me just like laboring should be taxed, and that's where I do think we'd probably come together. But but like, just especially lately, I think that the biggest challenges that we faced, I mean, even in a libertarian school of thought, I've been shoulder to shoulder with democratic socialists much more than I have with libertarians, and I feel like they've let corporate entities just kind of they've become shills for them, or many public figures, and like I said, a lot of Republican nominees. So I explain to me why you've stuck in there with a party past a Bill Barr, for instance, past a Bob Barr is what I meant to say. Right. Why have you stuck in there with them even when they've been kind
I joined the Separatist Party during Barr's.
What was the Separatist Party?
It was called the Boston Tea Party of America.
Okay.
And it was what had previously been the platform of the Libertarian Party prior to 2006, started over again as its own new party and ran our own separate presidential candidate. And then after Bob Barr was done and the mainstream Tea Party happened, it kind of soiled the brand for me. And then it just, a lot of what got removed from the platform slowly but surely got added back after the next few. We have a national convention every 2 years in which we add or subtract planks to our platform. So it didn't take much longer to sort of restore that which had been destroyed.
But you're not, particularly now that there's a runoff, that MAGA essentially has taken over the Republican Party, and there's a runoff of more perhaps libertarian-minded. I mean, what's her name? Liz Cheney may be accepted. She's certainly a neocon. But do you think that, but maybe some of the Lincoln Project, do you worry that the Libertarian Party is going to absorb them and that they're going to be essentially a Republican Party light again? You know?
No, I don't think that will necessarily happen, especially when you talk to those sort of disenfranchised Republicans, which is actually how the Libertarian Party ended up starting out. At the very first convention, they took a straw poll of all those who attended. 75% of them polled as being former Republicans, and 25% of them polled as being formerly unaligned. But it wasn't to be light, it was to be sort of anti-Nixon. The name we almost came up with was the Old Liberty Party, which was a shout back out to the Liberty Party that existed in the 1800s, one of the three abolitionist parties that merged together to form the Republican Party. And that would have been symbolic of that aspect of the Republican Party that had previously merged to form it, leaving again and becoming its own thing.
Yeah, you'd probably have to deal with, if you guys had gone with that, not you, I mean, but like, you'd probably have to deal with less of us socialists and, Chomsky-like people, ultimately.
In Brazil, we're called ultra-liberals.
Really?
And yeah.
Interesting, ultra liberals. Well, I know that there's big land disputes in Brazil as well in terms of those who work the land. But that's I think if anything, not liberalized me, but like leftized me or whatever, socialized me it was probably my Georgism. It was like, well, it doesn't make sense either that, that Nestle can buy all of Detroit's water for nothing, like the natural resources is just like, well, we do have a right to this.
Yeah, if we were starting from nothing, the single tax that George proposed would be certainly a much more eloquent solution to how you raise funds for government. And there is geo-libertarianism, geo for George, but geo for Earth libertarianism, which, all right, that's how you fund a government, but make it a limited, small government. That all makes sense. I mean, a country is just a big pile of land, so if you're part of that country, the land belongs there. I'm more sympathetic to Georgism than probably I make it sound, but there wouldn't be, the factory owners paying tax on the unimproved value of the land, which Rothbard went into huge detail why that's so hard to keep track of. I'm not particularly well versed on it, but I've glanced at it enough.
Yeah. Well, the Zapatistas too. Zapata, like the phrase that he introduced was land and liberty. And they're considered ultra leftist in Mexico. So I mean, I do think that there are lines and alliances to be drawn with everything, but like it's just the corporate influence right now is just too insidious, and so it's hard to trust anybody, politically, on the right now, and liberals, Democratic Party for sure, but like, I mean, leftists are at least crowdfunding, so I don't know.
Well, of the welfare dollars that the federal government shells out, for every one that goes to social welfare, 10 goes to corporate welfare. So you don't necessarily see big corporations dumping a ton of money.
We can get together on that for sure.
Because that goes away too. They're not necessarily, a Libertarian Party, with the White House and let's say 34% of the Congress really doesn't mean anything terrific for the bigger multinational corporations that are allowed to create their own regulations to basically stifle their own competition. Deregulation for somebody, like a bigger company is bad. The removal of the welfare state for a big company like Walmart is bad. They depend on those things every bit as much, and you're going to definitely see Amazon and Walmart and Monsanto give a lot more to the Democrats than they do to the Libertarian Party by a factor of 10 or 100. I have no idea.
But as bad as it is for a corporation like Walmart to slash welfare programs, slash Medicare, whatnot, it's a lot worse for a large swath of the population that depends on those programs. And, at least in terms of Medicare and Social Security, largely popular programs. So I agree that it's more of they spend a lot more towards corporate welfare, but it's because they're a larger. It doesn't cost anything to give basic subsistence to people, compared to the national budget.
Just something I can't even remember what you just asked, but I think just about the division that's happening in the GOP. Just going back to what I said at the very beginning, about my old college professor saying that we had two liberal parties. I think the way you see the next few years shape out, we'll either just have none or we'll have one, and the one will actually be the Republican Party at this point. I don't think President Harris is making it past 2024. And I think that's going to be the last bit of sort of the old guard of the Democratic Party. I think they're going to go towards a more hardline leftism, not liberalism. And then whatever happens, if Trump's the nominee and the GOP re-embraces Trumpism, then it's just gone from there too. And what Trump did was he came in and, he was anti-establishment, but Stalin could have been the president. He would have been anti-establishment. That just means he wasn't what was already there. And what was already going on in the GOP was the last of the Tea Party versus the last of the neocons, and who was going to be able to hold their breath the longest and continue on. Trump pretty much killed the Tea Party, but he also shooed away all the neocons. He was neither. Although I think it really, whatever positive things you could say about the bulk of what had been the Tea Party, it just turned out they weren't really about principles of any sort. They were just looking for the craziest guy in the room, and they found a reality show host. But I think the neocon thing just isn't coming back. And they can either continue to embrace Trumpism, in which case they'll probably split off into a couple of different parties and just be done as a major party, or they shoo Trump away. Trump might just get arrested before 2024, and he might just be in jail, or he might be under house arrest in Florida. And if you look at, especially during the lockdowns, sort of the heroes coming out of the GOP are the more kind of anti-authoritarian people. Again, I still would much rather have whoever the Libertarian Party runs be the next president and half the Senate and a bunch of the House and go from there. But, I sit back and I watch.
Do you think that's going to happen, Mike? Sorry to interrupt.
No, but here's the thing. Depending on which direction they go, they can again be hurt by the Libertarian Party. I think we saw 8 states where Joe Jorgensen did beat the margin of victory, where she did play spoiler, where if those went Trump's way,
certainly.
and they, like I said before, it is something that should have, at least in the past, maybe not even since Nixon, be votes that should be going Republican. And as long as they're going somewhere else, it's time for, or if it can wind up the other way. A lot of this might end up backfiring on the Democrats, where they realize they have to come a little bit higher up on the Nolan scale, and they have to start winning some of those votes back. Whatever you do, either I can win an election or I can take away so many of your votes. You have to work harder to get those votes back next time around. I told you the story in one of my campaigns. I just kept on putting up, I didn't put this here on purpose. It just happens to be sitting here, but I just kept on putting up all my signs that said, car insurance is too damn high.
It's a great
phrase. And I just started trolling both my Republican and my Democrat opponents until both of them made it a platform plank. And now we do have car insurance reform, and I didn't have to get a shitty government job.
And yes, and I do think that you are acting as a third party, spoiler candidate should act. Chip to keeping both of the other ones to account. Do you think that it's actually a problem in the United States that the rich are paying too many taxes?
One of the statistics you could throw out is that 23% of the tax revenue comes from the 1%. So if you just put it to there's a table at a restaurant.
Yeah, but they are the 1%. They are earning 99.999% of all earned income or whatever. That's not literal. I'm being hyperbolic. Yeah. Yes,
but they got the same garbage man.
Yeah,
and they can get hit by a nuke just as well as any of us. So
yeah, but they are also, advantaging themselves off of our laws and infrastructure and everything far more than the bum on the street or or like the busboy who's still paying FICA taxes or whatever at a higher rate than he should be. Really, I mean. But I mean, and then we're looking at like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, who, basically hacked the economy to an insane amount. I mean, like, don't you think we can take a few billion off of them?
No, I don't think it helps the situation long run. We taxed every billionaire that lives in this country at absolutely 100% of all of their wealth. You have enough money to run the government for 8 months at pre-COVID levels. You chase them all out, they're gone anyways. And Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have provided more value to my life in the last year than the bum. But I do believe in equal protection under the law. So I do believe that we should be getting rid of the income tax for everybody.
Well, so did Henry Ford Jr. in the 1950s, but he was still paying 95% of, or like not, like 70 to 90% taxes over I want to say 500,000 or something like that. Like the biggest, the most prosperous point in our history, we had the highest tax rates. And
that 7 people paid.
Yeah, well, but they paid it. They also built infrastructure.
But we also had a huge middle class that was picking up most of the bill. But I don't know if shoveling more money into the federal government is what actually causes that prosperity.
We got a highway program.
If you want to get back to that era and get that tax, it's going to come with a whole lot of deregulation too. So if that's the compromise you want, we'll go back to the 1950s and 7 guys will pay a high tax that, they deserved it. But,
well, Mike, let's work out a treatise on that next time. Thank you, Mike, very much for zooming in. You're fantastic as usual. And I'll talk to you next week. We will have another guest. I told you a little bit about it. I'm going to keep in suspense on it, but I'm very excited about this particularly. Like I said, like and subscribe. We've got the buttons right below us. And prepare yourself for more fantastic Spartalk content. We will see you next time.